On February 28, 2026, the world woke up to a new and dangerous reality. The simmering tensions between Iran, Israel, the United States finally boiled over into open war. Joint airstrikes targeted the highest levels of Iranian leadership, marking a sudden and violent escalation that sent shockwaves across the globe. This was not a distant conflict in a forgotten corner of the world. It was a war that immediately began to touch lives far from the battlefield, from a family in Tehran mourning a sudden loss to a driver in Ohio, watching gas prices climb to unbelievable heights. The conflict was felt in the heart of the Middle East and in the wallets of people everywhere. This essay will explore the profound and far-reaching consequences of this war. We will look closely at the devastating human cost, examining the lives lost and the communities shattered by bombs and missiles. In a quiet neighborhood in Tehran, a mother named Fatima received the news that her 8-year-old son would not be coming home from school. A missile, intended for a target miles away, had gone astray. It struck the small schoolyard where he was playing with his friends. Fatima's story is not unique. It is one of thousands that have emerged from the chaos and violence of the past few weeks. Before we can talk about oil prices or geopolitics, we must first acknowledge the profound human tragedy at the heart of this conflict. The first and most immediate cost of any war is measured in lives lost and futures stolen, a price paid by ordinary people like Fatima. Her loss is a simple, devastating fact that cuts through the complex reasons for the war. She does not care about the strategic justifications or the political endgame. She only knows that her son is gone forever. The simplicity of these personal tragedies stands in stark contrast to the complex machinery of modern warfare. A high-tech missile launched from hundreds of miles away ends its journey in a low-tech tragedy. A destroyed home, a grieving family, a shattered community. The war began without a formal declaration. On February 28, 2026, a series of coordinated and precise airstrikes carried out jointly by Israel and the United States targeted key leadership figures within the Iranian regime. This was Operation Epic Fury. The primary target was Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. The strikes were successful, killing him and several other high-ranking military and political officials. This decapitation strike was a dramatic escalation, moving beyond the previous strategy of targeting infrastructure or proxy forces. The goal was clear and ambitious: to cripple the Iranian government's ability to command and control its forces by removing its head. The justification for the attack centered on preventing Iran from developing a nuclear weapon and neutralizing its support for proxy militias across the Middle East. However, the Iranian regime did not collapse. Instead, it launched furious, widespread retaliation, quickly spiraling into a regional war with no clear boundaries. The human cost of the war has been staggering and immediate. In the first 2 weeks of the conflict, the numbers tell a brutal story of suffering. According to officials in Iran, at least 1,255 people have been killed in the initial waves of airstrikes. The vast majority of these victims were civilians, people who were in their homes, at work, or simply walking down the street. Among the dead are more than 200 children, their lives extinguished before they had a chance to grow up. The casualties span all ages, from an 8-month-old infant to an 88-year-old grandmother. The number of wounded is even greater. More than 12,000 people have been injured, overwhelming hospitals that were already struggling. Many of the injuries are severe, including extensive burns from explosions, crush injuries from collapsed buildings. At least 11 healthcare workers have been killed while on duty, and many hospitals have been damaged, further crippling the emergency response. The violence has been widespread, with strikes reported in over 200 cities across Iran. While the attackers claim military targets, officials insist many civilian areas have been hit, turning neighborhoods into war zones. Beyond the dead and wounded, a massive wave of displacement is underway. They leave with what they can carry, facing an uncertain future with limited access to food, water, and shelter. The war in Iran sent an immediate and violent shock through the global energy market. Within hours, the price of oil surged past $100 per barrel. This was the first time since 2022, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The reason is simple. The conflict is in the world's most critical region for oil and gas production. A significant portion of the world's daily oil consumption flows from the Persian Gulf. The war has directly jeopardized this flow. Approximately 20% of global oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran controls. With war, Iran restricted traffic, turning the choke point into a military zone. Tankers are unable or unwilling to risk passage, taking a huge amount of oil off the market. The sudden drop in supply, combined with fear of further disruptions, is what sent prices soaring. Every importer is feeling the squeeze. At the pump and in stores, higher energy costs ripple into daily life for billions. The Strait of Hormuz has always been the world's most important and most vulnerable energy choke point. It is a narrow stretch of water separating Iran from the Arabian Peninsula. It is the only sea passage from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. About a fifth of the world's oil flows through it. Now, with the outbreak of war, this critical artery of global trade has been effectively clamped shut. Iran has severely restricted traffic. Its forces have attacked commercial vessels. They have used electronic warfare to interfere with navigation systems. They have mined parts of the waterway, making passage exceptionally dangerous. Marine traffic has slowed to a near standstill. Giant supertankers that carry oil and LNG from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Kuwait to Asia, Europe, and North America are now stuck or rerouted on longer, costlier journeys. Insurance rates have skyrocketed, making passage financially impossible for many. The closure affects more than oil and gas. Qatar produces about 40% of the world's helium. Helium is critical for making semiconductors, the chips that power smartphones, cars, and MRI machines. With helium-laden LNG tankers unable to leave, the semiconductor industry faces a severe shortage. Fertilizer shipments falter, threatening yields and raising food prices globally. The war's impact on energy and shipping has unleashed a powerful economic shockwave that is being felt across the entire globe. The most immediate effect is a surge in inflation. As the price of fuel goes up, the cost of transporting all goods increases. This means that everything from food at the grocery store to clothes at the mall becomes more expensive. Families are finding that their paychecks do not stretch as far as they used to. This rising cost of living hits lower incomes hardest. Food and transportation costs dominate. This new wave of inflation presents a terrible dilemma for the world's central banks, like the US Federal Reserve. For the past 2 years, they have been trying to fight inflation by raising interest rates, but the current price spike is a war-driven supply shock. Raising rates further could push slowing economies into recession. Leaders demand lower rates to ease pain. Central bankers are trapped between inflation and downturn. Europe, highly dependent on imported energy, is especially vulnerable. High oil and gas threaten recession. Businesses cut production, and consumers reduce spending. In Asia, supply chain disruptions, from chips to fertilizers, create bottlenecks, hitting jobs and growth worldwide. The 2026 Iran war has fundamentally redrawn the map of risk in the Middle East. For the first time, Iran moved beyond confrontation through proxies, launching direct attacks with drones and missiles against rivals' homelands. Saudi Arabia has been targeted. The United Arab Emirates has been targeted. Qatar has been targeted. Bahrain has been targeted. Kuwait has been targeted. Oman has been targeted. This marks a terrifying new phase. The targets have been both strategic and symbolic. Major refineries hit, disrupting production. Busy airports closed, travel chaos. The port of Jebel Ali in Dubai, handling over 23 million containers a year, was attacked, signaling commercial lifelines as targets. Hotels have been damaged. Commercial vessels struck. Daily life now includes air raid sirens and sheltering. Shared threat is pushing a more overt Gulf-Israel security partnership. What was quiet cooperation becomes public alliance, even as new divisions emerge. The old order is crumbling, replaced by a more dangerous, unpredictable one. While much of the war is fought from the air with missiles and drones, there is also a significant cost being paid by military personnel on the ground. The United States has thousands of troops at bases across the Middle East, and these bases have become primary targets for Iranian retaliation. In the first 10 days of Operation Epic Fury, sustained attacks using rockets, missiles, and drones have resulted in a growing number of American casualties. This brings the reality of the war home to the United States, as families wait for news of loved ones overseas. Approximately 140 U.S. service members have been wounded so far. Most injuries are minor, and many have returned to duty, but 8 are severely injured, and at least 7 have been confirmed killed in action. Defenses like CRAM help, but mass barrages can overwhelm. Constant threat keeps personnel in relentless high alert. Casualties increase pressure for forceful response, risking further escalation and debate at home. The price is paid not only in dollars and barrels of oil, but in the blood of those sent to fight. The 2026 Iran war has, in a few short weeks, inflicted a terrible wound upon the world. Its consequences are stark and undeniable. We see it in profound human tragedy in Iran, where over 1,000 civilians have been killed, including hundreds of children, and in the grief of American families mourning the loss of soldiers. We feel it in global economic turmoil, as soaring oil prices fuel inflation and threaten recession, disrupting supply chains for everything from computer chips to food. And we witness it in the dangerous reshaping of the Middle East, where cities once seen as safe havens are now on the front lines. This war is a brutal lesson in the fragility of our interconnected world. A decapitation strike intended as a swift solution has unleashed chaos with no clear diplomatic off-ramps. The cycle of attack and retaliation is escalating daily. The immediate reality is grim. More lives will be lost, economies will suffer, instability will deepen. Yet the world must not abandon the search for a way out. Return to diplomacy, however difficult. Secure humanitarian corridors, reopen channels of communication. The pursuit of peace cannot be forsaken.